I always thought my grandfather's stories were just that, stories. He used to talk about the hollow beneath the barn, a space no one could see, but everyone could feel. When I was a kid, I'd laugh at the way his voice dropped when he said the word hollow, like it had weight. He died in his sleep last winter. Peaceful, they said. I inherited the house. Didn't want it, but selling it felt wrong. The barn still stood behind it, leaning, rusted, and full of creaks even on windless nights. The first week I moved in, I started hearing it. A knock, once, then twice, always from the barn, always at 3:17 a.m. I thought it was animals. I thought it was wind. Then I found the notebook. It had my name on the cover. Inside, handwritten notes, dates, times, descriptions of the sounds, knocking, scratching, even whispers, all written in my handwriting. But I had never seen it before. The last page said, "Don't go under the barn. If you're reading this, it's already watching you." Last night, I finally went out there. I don't know why. Curiosity maybe. Or maybe because something wanted me to. The hatch beneath the barn opened easily. Too easily. I didn't go down, but when I looked back toward the house, someone was standing in my bedroom window, watching me. And I live alone. Next story. They say the forest doesn't take kindly to liars. I thought it was a local myth, a way to keep kids honest. But when my younger sister disappeared after running off during a camping trip, the story felt less like a warning and more like a rule I had broken. We searched for days, then weeks. Nothing. No tracks, no items left behind. Just the feeling that the trees were watching. A year later, I went back, alone. Same path, same clearing, same time of year. And she was there, standing exactly where we lost her. Same clothes, same hair, same little pink shoes. Except she didn't age a day. She smiled when she saw me. "Where did you go?" I asked. Her smile didn't change. "I never left," she said. "You did." Her voice didn't sound like hers. It was too smooth, too flat. I reached out. She stepped back into the trees and vanished. All I brought home was her shoe. The same one we found the day she disappeared. Except now, it's brand new and dry, even though it rained all night. Next story. I bought the mirror at a garage sale. The man said it was not for the faint of heart. I thought he was joking. It was old, ornate, heavy. I figured I'd hang it in the hallway. But that night, it started. At first, it was subtle. I'd pass the mirror and see my reflection blink a half-second too late. Then it waved at me when I wasn't moving. I stopped walking past it. But that didn't stop it from watching. One night, I covered it with a sheet. I heard laughter from underneath. I moved it to the garage. The laughter followed. It didn't just reflect me. It remembered me. My clothes, my schedule, even how I stand. Then it began showing things that hadn't happened yet. Me arguing with my neighbor. A glass shattering in my kitchen. My front door wide open in the middle of the night. All of those things happened. Exactly as the mirror showed. Yesterday, it showed me sleeping, and a figure standing over my bed. Tonight, I'm not sleeping at home. And the mirror, it was already waiting at the motel. Next story. There's a town that doesn't appear on maps. Locals call it Red Hollow. You can only find it if you're not looking for it, usually after a wrong turn on a road that doesn't have a name. I got there just before sunset. The town looked frozen in time. Old cars, no cell signal. People who stared too long and smiled too wide. I stopped at the diner. Everyone in it turned to look at me when I walked in. One man stood up. Been a while since we had one. "One what?" I asked. He didn't answer. They served me coffee without asking what I wanted. It tasted like metal and something sweet, like syrup. I left cash on the counter. As I walked out, I saw it. A wall of missing person flyers, dozens of faces, all modern, all recent, and at the very bottom, a new one. My face, with today's date. I got in my car and floored it. But no matter how many turns I took, every road led me back to Red Hollow. The sun never set, and the people never blinked. It started with a voice, just a whisper, low and slow, curling like smoke through the back of my mind. Come see me. I was alone in the house. My parents were on vacation, and I was supposed to spend the weekend writing a paper. That night, I'd just gone to bed, lights off, laptop closed. The voice came again. Come down. I'm waiting. I froze. It felt so close. Not outside, not in the hallway, but inside me. My chest tightened, and I got up, walked through the darkened hallway, and stood at the top of the stairs. Silence. Maybe I was dreaming. Then the stairs creaked. 1 step. 2. Someone was coming up from the basement. I ran back to my room, locked the door, called my best friend. No answer. I crouched in the closet with my phone, trying to dial again, when I heard breathing. Not from the hallway, from the closet, right beside me. I threw the door open. Empty. Nothing there. But my phone? It started ringing. The screen said Mom, but when I answered, it wasn't her voice. It was that same whisper. You were too slow. I came up anyway. The line went dead. That was 2 years ago. I haven't been alone since. But sometimes, late at night, I hear footsteps in the basement. 1 step. 2. He's always waiting. Next story. There's something wrong with the man in apartment 3B. I moved into this old building downtown a few months ago. Cheap rent, no questions asked. I didn't mind the peeling paint or flickering hallway lights. But 3B? Always locked. No one ever comes or goes. One night, I was getting groceries when I saw him standing in the hallway, just watching me. He was tall, gaunt, and his eyes were the color of raw meat. I said hi. He didn't blink, just stared, head tilted like a dog trying to understand. Later that week, I passed his door again. From inside, I heard chewing, wet, slow chewing, and a faint metallic clink. I knocked. Silence. Next morning, there was a dark stain under his door. It smelled like rust and meat. I told the landlord. She went pale, said she'd talked to him. That night, she disappeared, just gone. No one's seen her since. Now, people say the lights on that floor flicker more often. Some tenants moved out. Last night, I found something on my doorstep. A tooth, not human. This morning, 3B's door was open. I went inside. The walls were covered in scratch marks, deep ones, like claws. In the corner sat a pile of bones, some small, some not. There was no sign of him, but I think I heard breathing behind the wall. And tonight, my door was unlocked. Next story. My little brother died last year, or at least we buried him. He was 5. Sweetest kid you'd ever meet. He had this habit of knocking on my door 3 times every night before bed. Knock, 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 and saying, "Good night, dummy." Then he'd giggle and run to his room. After the accident, that silence tore me apart. 3 weeks later, I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. "Good night, dummy." I jumped up, threw the door open. No one there. But I swear I heard giggling down the hallway. Mom thought I was hallucinating. Dad stopped talking altogether. But every night, same thing. 3 knocks, same phrase. Then things got worse. My room would be freezing. I'd wake up with scratches on my arms. My brother's toys started showing up in places we'd never put them. The bathtub, the kitchen sink, the attic. One night, I followed the giggle into the basement. There he was, sitting in the dark, pale, eyes wide, unblinking. "Why didn't you come with me?" he whispered. I couldn't speak. He stood up. His legs weren't right, like they'd bent backward. "I waited for you." I ran, locked the basement, but the knocking never stopped. Tonight, it's louder. Knock, knock, knock. And now, it's coming from inside my closet. Next story. We moved into our new house last spring. Everything seemed perfect until we found the crawl space. It wasn't on the floor plan, hidden under the stairs, sealed tight. Curiosity got the best of us. Inside, it was cramped, dusty, empty, except for a single wooden chair and a broken handheld mirror. And scratched into the wall were hundreds of tally marks, each one bared with a date. The last one was tomorrow. We sealed the crawl space and pretended we never saw it. But tonight, I heard the chair scrape across the floor beneath the stairs. Next story. Every night, I set my phone to charge on my nightstand, and every morning, it's somewhere else, under the bed, in the hallway, once even in the fridge. I live alone. Last night, I left it recording audio. This morning, it was in the bathtub, still recording. I listened. At 2:47 a.m., footsteps, then breathing, then my own voice whispering, "Don't look at me while I sleep." But I never said that. There's a stretch of highway just outside my town called Devil's Mile. Everyone's heard the stories. People vanishing, strange lights, phantom hitchhikers. I always thought it was nonsense until I drove it. It was late, past midnight. I was coming home from a party half drunk and too stubborn to take the long way. I turned onto Devil's Mile, radio blasting, windows down. Halfway through, the signal cut. Silence. No static. Just dead air. Then the headlights started flickering. My engine sputtered. I pulled over, swearing, banging the wheel. That's when I saw her. A girl, maybe 16, standing on the side of the road. Pale, barefoot, long black hair covering her face. She was holding a teddy bear, soaking wet, like she'd just crawled out of a lake. She looked up at me. Her eyes were solid black. I floored it. The road stretched longer than it should have. Every mile felt like 10. No exits, no signs. And behind me, always behind me, headlights. But every time I looked, they vanished. When I finally burst out the other side, it was nearly dawn. My phone had 30 missed calls, all from unknown. My car, covered in wet handprints, on the hood, the windows, the roof, and in the back seat, soaked teddy bear. I don't remember stopping. I burned it that night, but sometimes, when I drive alone, my phone rings at 3:33 a.m. I don't answer anymore. Next story. My dad's job took us all over the country. He was a structural engineer, mostly bridges, tunnels, and old buildings. But one place stuck with me, Ravenhill Asylum. It had been abandoned for decades. He was hired to assess it for demolition. I tagged along because I was 16 and bored. Big mistake. The place was wrong the second we walked in. The air felt heavy. The walls were stained. The lights didn't work. And even the dust smelled off. But deeper inside, the silence was crushing. Then we found the children's wing. Doors painted with fading animals. Cribs still bolted to the floors. My dad said the wing had been shut down early before the rest. Too many incidents, he muttered. I wandered into a room with a cracked mirror. My reflection blinked, but I didn't. I ran back to Dad. He didn't believe me. Then we heard it. Laughter, high-pitched, dozens of voices. We turned. The hallway behind us had changed. It was longer. The windows were gone, and the laughter got closer. We ran. The exit was gone. We kept turning corners, finding the same rooms over and over. Eventually, Dad found a rusted fire escape door and kicked it open. We tumbled outside, gasping. Back at the hotel, we checked his phone. He'd recorded video inside. The footage was mostly static, but in every frame, just behind us, there were faces in the dark. Dozens, watching. He quit that job the next day. Next story. When I was 7, I had an imaginary friend named Charlie. He was funny, kind, always knew what I was thinking. My parents thought it was cute, until I told them Charlie lived in the mirror. They took the bathroom mirror down, hid it in the attic. That night, I found a new one in my closet. It hadn't been there before. Charlie was waiting inside, smiling. He told me secrets, told me where Dad kept the Christmas presents, told me about the neighbor's dog before it went missing, told me how my mom would die. A week later, she got in a car crash. No one could explain why she swerved into oncoming traffic. But Charlie just said, "Told you so." After that, I stopped talking to him. But Charlie didn't stop talking to me. I'd see him in spoons, sunglasses, storefront glass, smiling, waiting. When I was 12, I covered every mirror in the house. It helped, for a while. Then I started seeing my reflection move when I didn't, blinking twice, tilting its head, grinning. One night, I woke up to find all the mirrors in the house uncovered, every single one. And in each one, Charlie stood behind me. He whispered, "You're not the only one who grew up." Now I sleep in the dark, no glass, no screens. But every morning, something leaves messages on my bathroom mirror. Let me out. One day. I think I will. Отлично. Вот еще 3 длинные истории в нужном тебе формате. 11 Labs формат. 3500 символов. Без финальных фраз, без лишнего оформления. Начинаю с next story. Next story. My grandmother warned me never to answer the phone after 2 a.m. She said, spirits borrow voices at that hour. Last night my phone rang at 2:17. Caller ID said Mom. I answered groggily. She said, "Honey, come outside." I'm home. My mom died 3 years ago, and her voice is still whispering through the phone, begging me to open the door. Next story, I always leave a bowl of water out for my cat before bed. But lately, every morning, it's bone dry and covered in tiny handprints. Not paw prints, handprints. I set up a camera. At 3:12 a.m., a shadow crawled into the kitchen. Tall, thin, jerkily moving. It drank from the bowl, then turned toward the camera. Its eyes were exactly like my cat's. I never liked hospitals. Too sterile, too cold, too full of things people don't talk about. When my grandfather got sick, I had to visit him every day. Room 409, 4th floor, end of the hall. The place was always too quiet, like the walls were holding their breath. Grandpa kept saying the nurses weren't real, that they weren't there to help him. I thought it was dementia. Then I saw her, a nurse, pale skin, uniform too clean, movements too smooth, like a marionette without strings. She never spoke, just stood outside Grandpa's door, watching. One night, as I was leaving, I passed her in the hallway. Her head turned a full 90 degrees to follow me. I didn't go back for 3 days. When I finally did, Grandpa was worse. He grabbed my hand and whispered, "They feed when you sleep." That night, I stayed over, sat in the visitor's chair with a blanket, watching the door. At 3:13 a.m., the door creaked open. The nurse stood there, but not alone. Behind her were others, doctors, patients, all wrong, their faces too smooth, mouths too wide, eyes black pits. They surrounded Grandpa's bed. I tried to scream, but my voice was gone, frozen. The next morning, Grandpa was dead. The hospital said heart failure, but when I looked at the security footage, the cameras froze between 3:10 and 3:15, just static. And in the reflection of the window, not just one nurse, dozens, waiting. My college dorm had a reputation. They called it the Wailing Floor, room 606. Nobody stayed there long. The story was always the same. Crying late at night. Not loud, just soft, broken sobs from the corner of the room. I got assigned 606 my sophomore year. At first, it was fine. Weird noises, sure. Old building stuff. I joked about it with my roommate, Carter. Then the crying started. At 2:17 a.m., every night without fail. Always from the same spot, the far left corner by the desk. We thought it was the pipes, maybe a prank, until Carter saw her. He woke me up, pale, shaking, pointing. I looked, and there she was, a girl, maybe our age, sitting cross-legged, face buried in her hands, shoulders heaving with silent sobs. I turned on the lights. She vanished. We slept with the lights on after that. But she didn't stop. Some nights she moved closer. Some nights she stood at the edge of Carter's bed, just staring, crying. He left after a week, broke his lease, wouldn't talk about it. I stayed. Bad choice. The night after Carter left, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not mine. I opened my eyes. She was there, inches from my face, eyes wide, mouth stitched shut with black thread. I bolted, moved out the next day. But no matter where I go, at exactly 2:17 a.m., I hear soft crying. And sometimes, in the corner of my room, I see her shadow. There's an abandoned amusement park 20 minutes outside of town. They say it shut down after an accident, but no one talks about what really happened. The rides still stand, rusting, rotting. Locals dare each other to spend the night there. Stupid tradition. I took the dare. Midnight, backpack, flashlight, phone for evidence. The gate was half open, creaking in the wind. Inside, the place was dead. Broken bumper cars, collapsed cotton candy stands, a Ferris wheel frozen mid-spin. I made it halfway to the carousel when I heard it. Music, not from a speaker. Old warped calliope music floating through the fog. The carousel was moving. No power, no people, just spinning, slowly. The horses looked wrong. Twisted faces, jagged teeth, empty eyes. One of them had something in its mouth, a scrap of fabric, red and stained. I should have left. Instead, I took a video. As I panned across the carousel, I caught something in the background. A man, standing perfectly still, wearing a cracked clown mask, grinning. I turned. No one there. When I checked the footage later, he was closer in every frame. By the time I ran back to the gate, the Ferris wheel had started moving too, its lights flickering. And just before I escaped, I heard laughter. Not from the speakers, from right behind me. Now every night at 3 a.m., my phone plays that same warped carousel music, even when it's turned off. There's a man who stands across the street from my apartment every night. Same coat, same hat, always facing my window. He never moves, never speaks. I've called the cops 3 times. Every time, they say there's no one there. But I see him, every night, 2 a.m. on the dot. Last night, I worked up the nerve to shout at him. His head tilted, slowly, and he raised one hand. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number, a photo of me, taken from across the street. We got a baby monitor when our son was born. At first, just white noise and the occasional cooing. But around 3 a.m., we started hearing a second voice, not his. A deep, raspy whisper saying, "It's not your turn." Last night, we ran in when we heard him crying. He was staring at the corner of the room, shaking his head, repeating, "Go away. You already had your turn, Dad." It started with the smell. Rotten eggs, sulfur, faint at first, just a whiff when I passed the attic door. I blamed the old pipes, maybe something dead in the walls. But then the thumping began, heavy, rhythmic, like someone pacing in the attic. I lived alone. I finally got brave enough to pull down the attic ladder, climbed up with a flashlight in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. Nothing, just dust, cobwebs, and old boxes, until I saw it. Symbols, carved into the beams, deep gouges, angry and crude. Circles, crosses, eyes. In the center of the attic floor, a stain, black and cracked, like something had burned straight through. I heard a whisper behind me, turned. No one there. When I climbed down, the ladder snapped shut by itself. That night, the thumping got louder, then scratching, then whispering. At 3:33 a.m., I woke up to find the attic door open, the ladder down, Something was standing at the bottom. Tall, thin, twisted. Its face was wrong, stretched into a grin that didn't move. I locked myself in the bathroom until morning. The landlord said the previous tenant left without warning, just packed up and vanished. He also said the smell started after they moved in. I'm sleeping in my car now, but every morning when I check the house, the attic door is open again. Waiting. Next story. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the bone collector. A spirit, she said, who visited lonely houses, especially ones with children. He'd leave little gifts, a knuckle bone, a rib, a vertebra, in places you wouldn't notice right away. Under pillows, inside shoes, in kitchen drawers. If you found one and didn't give it back, he'd come at night to take a replacement, something of yours. I thought it was just folklore, until last week. I found a bone in my sock drawer, tiny, white, too clean. I laughed it off, threw it away. The next night, I heard scraping at my window. It was locked, 3 stories up. The night after, I woke up to find another bone on my nightstand, longer this time, almost like a finger. I didn't sleep after that. The third night, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, from inside my closet. Something brushed my hair as I lay frozen in bed. When I finally found the courage to check, there was a note tucked under my pillow. 3 words, scrawled in something dark. You owe me. I tried to leave town the next day, packed everything, got in my car. But when I checked the back seat, the mirror showed someone sitting behind me, smiling. I drive now without looking in mirrors, but some mornings I find bones scattered across the back seat, smaller each time. Next story. The subway tunnels under the city are older than most people realize. Some sections were abandoned decades ago, forgotten, but sometimes, late at night, the trains still pass through them. Conductors call them ghost tunnels. Superstition, they say. I didn't believe it either, until the night shift. I was working maintenance, routine inspection, me and 2 other guys, walking the tracks between stations, radios buzzing with static every few minutes. Then we heard a train coming, but there was no scheduled train at that hour. We pressed against the wall as the lights approached, but as it passed, we realized it wasn't a regular train. The cars were empty, windows shattered, graffiti in languages I didn't recognize. Inside, shapes moved, but not people. Slumped forms, twisting unnaturally. One of the guys bolted, ran down the tunnel, disappearing into the dark. The other started muttering prayers under his breath. I just stood there, frozen. At the end of the train, a door swung open. Something stepped out. Not human. Its body was thin and elongated, almost scraping the ceiling. Skin gray and tight over bones. No face, just a blank canvas of flesh. It started walking toward us. I ran. Later, they found the first guy's helmet, crushed like paper. No sign of him. The other guy quit, moved across the country. I still work nights sometimes, but I never go near the old tunnels. And when I hear a train I don't recognize, I hide until the lights are gone. Next story. I bought a used baby monitor at a garage sale. It worked fine, until one night I heard lullabies playing softly through it. I don't have a baby. I checked the house. Nothing. The next night, a voice came through. Software. Gentle. A woman singing, then saying, "You were such a beautiful boy." I unplugged it and threw it away. The singing didn't stop. Now it comes through my speakers, my phone, even when there's no power. And sometimes I wake up to find toys arranged neatly beside my bed. I live alone. There's a house at the end of our street that nobody lives in. It's not abandoned. The grass stays trimmed. The porch light turns on at night. The windows are always clean. But no one ever sees anyone go in or out. The neighborhood kids dare each other to knock on the door. One Halloween, we worked up the courage. 5 of us, laughing too loud to hide how scared we were. We dared Tyler to do it. He walked up the steps, knocked 3 times. The door opened. Just a crack. No one visible. He leaned closer, said something stupid like, "Trick or treat." The door swung open wider. We all stood there, waiting. Then Tyler stepped inside. We heard a slam, ran up the steps, banged on the door, yelled his name. Nothing. When we finally got the guts to go in, the house was empty, dusty, cold, the furniture covered in sheets, the lights flickering even though the bulbs were new. We searched for hours. No Tyler. Then we heard it. Footsteps upstairs. Heavy. Slow. We ran. Tyler's parents called the cops. The search lasted weeks. Flyers everywhere. No clues. No leads. A month later, his voice started coming from the house. Crying. Pleading. Screaming. Some nights, I still hear it. Always after midnight. I'll walk by and see a shape in the window, pressed against the glass, watching, waiting. Next story, I used to work at a call center. Boring job. Same script over and over. Half the time, people just hung up. One night, during the late shift, my headset buzzed. Static, then a voice. Software. Childlike. Help me. I checked the caller ID. Blank. No number. Not even unknown. Just an empty space. I asked who it was. No answer. Just breathing. I flagged my supervisor. He shrugged it off. Said prank calls happen. But it kept happening. Every night around 2 a.m. The same call. Same voice. Same 2 words. Help me. I started hearing the voice, even when the phones weren't ringing. In the bathroom. In the break room. In my car, on the way home. I started losing sleep. Stopped answering my phone altogether. One night, I stayed late to finish paperwork. The lights flickered. The computer screen glitched. And then, across every monitor in the office, a single sentence appeared. "Why didn't you help me?" I ran. Quit the next day. But the calls didn't stop. I smashed my phone. Got a new number. Changed cities. Last week, my new phone rang at 2 a.m. No caller ID. Just static. And then the whisper, "You found me." Next story. When I was a kid, my grandfather warned me about the mirror hours. Times when the clock shows the same numbers, forward and backward. 11:11, 12:21, 3:30. He said if you stare into a mirror during one of those times, sometimes you don't see yourself. You see something pretending to be you. And if you don't look away fast enough, it switches places. I thought it was an old man's nonsense. Until last Thursday. I stayed late at work, finished up at exactly 11:11 p.m. In the bathroom, washing my hands, I glanced at the mirror. At first, everything looked normal. Then my reflection blinked. But I didn't. I froze. The reflection smiled. Wider than should be possible. Then it reached forward. I turned and ran. As I slammed the bathroom door, I heard the mirror crack. I don't know if I made it out fast enough. Because sometimes, when I catch my reflection in windows or screens, it's not quite right. It moves slower, smiles longer, and every day it looks a little less like me and a little more like something else. Отлично. Сразу продолжаю без пауз. Вот следующие 3 истории в 11 Labs формате, без финальных фраз и без лишнего оформления. Next story. There's an old motel on the outskirts of town. No signs, no advertisements, just a flickering vacancy light that never turns off. Nobody sane stays there. But after my car broke down during a storm, I didn't have a choice. The lobby was empty. Bell on the counter. Dust everywhere. A key already waiting with my room number, 108, tied to it with string. The hallway smelled like mildew and something worse. Sweet. Rotten. My room was small. 1 bed, 1 cracked mirror. A window that wouldn't open. I was too tired to care. Threw my bag down and passed out. At 3:11 a.m., I woke up to scratching. Soft at first, then frantic, coming from inside the closet. I called the front desk. No answer. The scratching got louder. I crept to the closet door, pressed my ear against it, breathing, shallow, wet. I flung it open, empty. But when I turned around, the reflection in the cracked mirror showed the closet still shut, and something pushing against it from the inside. I left everything behind and ran. When I looked back from the parking lot, the lights were off. The vacancy sign was dark. The motel wasn't there anymore, just an empty lot. My brother went missing 5 years ago. He was obsessed with urban exploration, old hospitals, sewers, abandoned factories, always chasing the next thrill. His last known location was the Carter building downtown. Condemned, supposedly empty. I went in after him. Flashlight, camera, stupid bravery. The place was a maze of collapsed ceilings and flooded hallways. But in the basement, I found something strange. The walls were covered in handprints, tiny ones, child-sized. They led to a door, heavy steel, bolted from the outside, something scratched from the inside. I called out, "Evan." Silence. Then a whisper, "Help me." I unbolted the door and opened it. Darkness deeper than night stared back at me. I should have run, but I stepped inside. The door slammed shut. Total blackness. Only my flashlight beam, weak and flickering. And then, movement. A dozen figures crawling on the floor, limbs too long, faces stretched in permanent screams. I ran, crashing through them, somehow finding another exit. I never found my brother. But sometimes, late at night, I hear knocking at my apartment door. 3 soft knocks. When I look through the peephole, I see him, smiling. But his eyes aren't right anymore. Next story. There's a town that doesn't exist on any map. Locals call it Hollow Point. You only find it when you're already lost. Late at night, driving unfamiliar roads, radio static buzzing. That's how I found it. I don't even remember turning onto that road. 1 minute, I was heading home. The next, I was under a rusted sign that said, "Welcome to Hollow Point." The town was frozen in time. 1950s storefronts, empty streets, a diner with a neon sign flickering weakly. But it wasn't abandoned. People walked the sidewalks, dressed in old clothes, faces blank, smiling too wide. I pulled over, tried to ask for directions. They ignored me. Until one of them, a boy, no older than 10, looked straight at me and whispered, "You're not supposed to be here." I got back in my car, tried to drive away. Every street led back to the same diner. No matter where I turned, there it was. And the people started getting closer, walking toward my car, smiling. I drove straight through someone, or tried to. The car passed right through him. He didn't even blink, just smiled wider. I finally found a road out, a cracked, overgrown path into the woods. I didn't stop until sunrise. Now, every time I drive at night, I check the signs carefully. Because sometimes, even now, I see glimpses of Hollow Point in my rearview mirror. And every time, the faces are closer. Next story. When I was 12, my cousin dared me to explore the woods behind our grandparents' house. They called it the Crooked Forest. Trees grew at strange angles, twisting toward the sky like they were reaching for something. Nobody went there after dark. Of course, we picked the dumbest time. Sunset. We found a path almost immediately. Narrow, overgrown, barely wide enough for us to walk side by side. About half an hour in, we found the well. It sat in a clearing, crumbling with age, half swallowed by vines. No bucket, no rope, just darkness yawning beneath. We dared each other to look inside. I leaned over first. Something was looking back. Not a reflection, not an animal, a face, pale, eyeless, smiling too wide. I stumbled back, told my cousin. He thought I was messing with him, until the voice called his name. Not mine, his, soft and sweet. From deep below, he leaned over, and something grabbed him, pulled him half into the well before I caught his arm. He screamed. I screamed. Whatever had him was strong. I saw long gray fingers wrapping around his ankle. I yanked with everything I had. We ran. Neither of us talked about it again. But sometimes, when I dream, I see that well, and something crawling out of it. Slowly, patiently. Next story. The apartment above mine has been vacant for 6 months, but every night at 1:06 a.m., I hear footsteps pacing back and forth. Slow, steady, never stopping. I told the landlord. He said I was the third tenant to complain, and the first 2 moved out within a week. Last night, I went upstairs. The hallway was dark. The air, still, cold. I knocked on the door of 4B. No answer. As I turned to leave, I heard a whisper directly behind me. Don't knock. It doesn't like being interrupted. There was no one there, and now I hear footsteps inside my apartment too. Next story, I work at a morgue on the night shift. Mostly quiet. Just the dead. One night, the alarm on drawer number 6 started going off. Motion detected. The body inside was a John Doe, found days earlier. I opened it. He was smiling, and clutched in his hand was a Polaroid of me, sleeping. Next story, I deliver pizzas on the weekends. Most of the time, it's boring. Same neighborhoods, same bad tips. But last Saturday night, I got an order from the edge of town, a place called Hollow Creek Road. No street lights, no houses I could see. Just trees swallowing the road on both sides. The GPS led me to a small, crumbling house. No cars outside, no porch light. The door was already open. I should have left. But I needed the tip. I knocked. No answer. I stepped inside. The house was cold, dark, smelled like dirt and something sour. On the floor, right inside the doorway, was a small table, and on it, exact change for the pizza, and a note. Thank you for feeding me. I turned to leave. Then I heard breathing behind me. Deep, wet, guttural. I dropped the pizza and ran. When I reached my car, I looked back. Something stood in the doorway, too tall, too thin. Its head brushing the top of the frame. It waved, not a friendly wave, more like a promise. I don't deliver past the highway anymore. And when I drive at night, I keep the windows rolled up, because sometimes, if you listen closely, you can hear heavy breathing just outside the glass. Next story. There's a cemetery near my apartment, old, overgrown. Half the headstones too worn to read. Every night on my walk home, I pass it. And every night, I feel like I'm being watched. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I stepped inside. The gate creaked shut behind me. The air was heavy, thicker than it should have been. The hairs on my arms stood up. I walked between the graves, reading the names. Most were from the 1800s. Then I found a new one. Fresh dirt. No name. Just a blank headstone. That's when I heard it. Whispering. All around me. The names of the dead. Chanted in a low, steady hum. I turned to leave. But the gate was gone. Just a wall of thick fog where it had been. And in that fog, shapes moved. Slow. Shuffling. Crawling toward me. I ran, heart pounding. No matter where I turned, the graves stretched on endlessly, and the whispering got louder. Then, from the fog, a hand grabbed my ankle, cold, bone-thin. I kicked free and ran blind. When I stumbled out into the street, gasping, the cemetery was behind me again, silent, still. But now, every time I pass it, there's a new grave, and the headstone isn't blank anymore. It has my name. Отлично. Продолжаю сразу еще 3 истории. Все по правилам. 11 laps формат. Без финальных фраз. Каждая начинается с next story. Next story. When I was a kid, my dad warned me about the man in the drain. Said if you stayed in the bathroom too long after midnight, You might hear him whispering from the sink. I thought he was just trying to scare me. Until the night I stayed up late, playing video games, and forgot the time. It was 12:37 a.m. when I went to brush my teeth. The bathroom felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. Colder, heavy. As I leaned over the sink, I heard it, a whisper, my name. I froze. The water in the drain rippled even though the faucet was off. I backed away. Something started crawling out. A hand, pale, wet, fingers too long, nails broken and black. I slammed the bathroom door and ran. The next morning, everything looked normal, but the mirror had fogged over, even though the bathroom hadn't been used, and scrawled into the fog 4 words. See you next time. I never stay in the bathroom after midnight now, but sometimes, when I pass by, I hear faint tapping from the pipes, getting louder. Next story. Last summer, I volunteered at a local history museum, mostly boring stuff, giving tours, setting up exhibits, until we opened the Victorian wing. It was full of old clothes, cracked dolls, broken furniture, and the mirror, an enormous ornate thing, gold frame, spiderweb cracks in the glass. We were told never to touch it. One night, closing up, I passed by the mirror, and I saw someone standing behind me, tall, dressed in black, face hidden by a veil. I turned, no one there. When I looked back at the mirror, the cracks had shifted. They formed a word, stay. I laughed it off. Maybe a trick of the light. The next day, a co-worker went missing, vanished during her shift. Security footage showed her walking past the mirror, and then, gone. No one saw her leave. Later that week, another volunteer disappeared. Same pattern. By the time we closed the exhibit, 3 people were missing. When they moved the mirror to storage, workers found handprints from the inside. I quit the museum after that. But sometimes, in shop windows or puddles, I catch glimpses of someone behind me, waiting. There's a legend about the train that doesn't stop. You only see it if you're out too late, alone, tired. They say if you board it, you don't come back. I thought it was just a ghost story, until last month. I was walking home after a late shift, too tired to think straight. I heard a train whistle. Strange. There hadn't been an active track in the city for years. Then I saw it. A black train rolling through the fog, silent except for the whistle. It stopped right in front of me. The doors slid open. Inside, the passengers sat motionless, faces blank, eyes empty. One seat was empty. Right in the middle, I felt something pulling me forward. The smell of iron and rot filled the air. I turned and ran. The doors slammed shut. The train disappeared into the fog without a sound. Ever since that night, I dream about it, standing at the station, unable to move as the train rolls closer. And every time, the empty seat is waiting for me. Closer, closer. Next story. Growing up, my neighbor, Mr. Holloway, always kept his blinds shut. Kids said his house was haunted. Some swore they saw faces in the windows at night, not his, but something else. One summer, I hit a baseball through his window. I was terrified. I crept up to the house, dreading the punishment. The door was open. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first, like damp earth and old metal. The living room was empty. Dust thick on the floor, except for footprints. Small ones, barefoot, leading deeper into the house. I followed them. Every mirror was shattered. Every clock stopped at 3:03. I found the baseball in the hallway, and next to it, a photo. It showed Mr. Holloway standing with a family I'd never seen before. Their faces were scratched out. Suddenly, footsteps upstairs. Slow, heavy. I ran. As I sprinted down the steps, I caught a glimpse of the hallway mirror, cracked but still hanging. Something was in it, tall, bent, smiling with too many teeth. When I made it outside, the front door slammed shut behind me. The next day, The house was boarded up. Nobody mentioned Mr. Holloway again. But sometimes at 3:03 a.m., I see lights flicker behind the cracks in the boards. And faintly, if the wind is right, I hear knocking. Next story. The hotel where I worked had one forbidden room. Room 814. Staff weren't allowed to clean it. Guests weren't allowed to stay there. It was always locked, key missing. Management just said maintenance issues. We all knew better. Sometimes, late at night, the elevator would stop at the 8th floor on its own. The doors would open. Room 814's door would be ajar. No one ever got out. One night, I got curious. The elevator opened by itself at 2:14 a.m. The hallway was dark, except for the light spilling from 814. I stepped out. The door creaked wider. I should have turned back, but I stepped inside. The room was frozen in time. Bed neatly made, a single suitcase on the floor, coated in dust. The air was heavy, almost thick enough to choke on. And on the wall, written over and over in tiny frantic handwriting, "Don't look at the mirror. Too late." I turned. The mirror was cracked, blackened around the edges, and in it, standing behind me, was a man, or what used to be a man, mouth sewn shut, eyes hollow. He raised one finger to his lips. "Shh," I bolted. The door slammed behind me. Now, every time I check into a hotel, the elevator stops on the 8th floor, even when there isn't one. Next story. When the power outage hit our neighborhood, I thought nothing of it. Storms were common. Flashlights, candles, the usual. But around midnight, I heard knocking. Software. Rapid. At the front door. I peeked through the peephole. Nobody there. I turned away. And the knocking came again. This time at the back door. Then the windows. All at once. Like a dozen fists pounding. I grabbed my phone. No signal. The candles flickered and went out. I stood in total darkness, heart hammering. Then, whispers. Low. Urgent. Right against my ears. "Let us in." I backed against the wall, trying not to breathe. The whispers grew louder, turning into angry hissing. Suddenly the front door handle jiggled violently. I thought the lock would snap. Then, silence. The power came back on. Everything looked normal. Until I checked the door. Scratches covered the wood. Deep. Furious. And at the bottom, written in jagged lines, "We'll be back when it's darker." Next story, I use a sleep tracking app that records sounds at night. Usually, it's just breathing. Maybe some tossing and turning. Last week, I checked the log. There was a clip labeled 3:08 a.m. I played it. First, my breathing. Then, someone else's. Heavier. Closer. Then a whisper. "You should lock your window." I did after that. But last night, the log recorded a new clip. It was a voice, right beside the mic. Too late. My childhood home had a room we weren't allowed to enter. The 3rd bedroom. Door always locked. Curtains always drawn. My parents said it was used for storage, that it was unsafe. I believed them until the night I heard crying from inside. It wasn't just any crying. It was my voice, soft, scared, calling for help. I pressed my ear to the door. The crying stopped. Then, footsteps, rushing toward me from the other side. I ran. Later that night, I found scratches on the door, on my side, deep, like someone, or something, had been trying to claw its way out. I told my parents. They looked at each other, pale, and said, "We don't talk about that room." Weeks later, they went out for the night, and curiosity won. I found the old key in my dad's toolbox, unlocked the door. The room was empty, except for a mirror. And in the mirror, I saw myself, but not as I was now. Younger, dirtier, thinner, eyes hollow. The reflection reached toward me. I slammed the door and locked it again. The next morning, the key was gone. But sometimes, late at night, I hear knocking from behind the door. 3 knocks, then a whisper. "Let me back." Next story. There's a house on the hill outside town where the windows are always open, no matter the season. Rain, snow, wind, always open. Legend says the family that lived there vanished one winter night. Every window flung wide despite the blizzard. No bodies, no footprints, just the house. Some idiots dared me to go up there. I did. The air inside was wrong, too still, heavy with the smell of frozen earth. The furniture was intact, covered in dust. Family photos still hung on the walls, except the faces were scratched out. As I moved deeper inside, I heard it, a faint scratching sound, coming from the walls, like fingernails, dragging slow and steady. In the dining room, the table was set for dinner. Plates, silverware, cups, all pristine, except the plates were full, with dirt. I turned to leave. That's when I saw them. Figures, blurry and shifting, standing in front of the windows, watching, their mouths open in silent screams. I bolted out the door, sprinting downhill until I couldn't breathe. Now, every time I pass that hill, I swear I see shapes standing in the windows, waiting for someone else to leave the door open. Next story. At the end of the abandoned subway line, there's a station that isn't on any map. People call it Terminal Zero. They say if you ride the last train long enough without getting off, the doors will open there, and you won't be alone. One night, drunk and stupid, I stayed on the train. The car emptied out, stop by stop, until it was just me and him. A man in a suit, 2 sizes too big, face hidden in shadows, sitting perfectly still 3 rows back. I told myself not to be paranoid. The train rattled deeper into the tunnels. No stops, no announcements. Finally, it slowed. The doors opened. Terminal Zero. The platform was crumbling, covered in moss and graffiti, lights flickering like dying stars. The suited man stood up. I didn't wait. I ran. Through the tunnels, up rusted stairwells, past broken turnstiles. I didn't stop until I burst into the cold night air, miles from where I boarded. I never ride the subway anymore, but sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear the screech of metal on metal and see the suited man standing by the tracks, still waiting. Next story. We found a door in the basement that wasn't there before. It wasn't part of the blueprints. No hinges, no knob, just a black outline in the brick wall. We tried to ignore it, but every night it creaked open just a little, and the temperature dropped. We taped it shut, bricked it over, covered it with shelves. It still opens, and now there's something behind it. We don't see it, but we smell it, hear it, breathing, waiting. Next story. I always hated the old portrait in my grandma's hallway. A painting of a man in a black suit, eyes too small, mouth too wide. She said it came with the house. After she died, I moved in. The portrait was gone. I asked the neighbors. None of them remembered it. Then I found it in the attic, face down. When I flipped it over, the man in the painting was smiling wider, and I swear, one of his hands had moved. That night, I found it hanging in the hallway again, and now the eyes follow me. Next story. There's an old payphone downtown that rings at exactly midnight. It's not connected to anything, but if you answer it, a voice speaks. Always a loved one, always dead. I answered it once, just to prove it was a hoax. The voice on the other end. My brother, he drowned when I was 12. He said, "It's dark here. I don't know how long I've been waiting, but I hear footsteps now." I asked what he meant. He whispered, "They're coming for you next." The line went dead. Now the phone rings every night, but only when I walk by. I never liked my great-uncle's house. It smelled of mothballs and cold stone, and the hallways were too narrow, the ceilings too low, like the whole place had been built to trap you. After he passed, the family gathered to clear it out. I got stuck with the basement. It was worse than I remembered. Damp, dark. The light bulb above the stairs flickered constantly, casting more shadows than light. As I started hauling out old trunks and broken furniture, I noticed something odd. A door, set into the far wall, half hidden behind a shelf. A door I didn't remember ever seeing before. It was small, barely high enough for a child to pass through. The doorknob was icy cold. Curiosity won. I pulled the shelf aside and opened the door. Behind it was a narrow tunnel, carved straight into the stone foundation. Dirt and rock walls pressed in on both sides. The air that poured out smelled ancient, like the inside of a grave. I should have closed the door and left, but something moved in the darkness ahead. A shuffling sound, like bare feet dragging over stone. And a whisper, my name. It didn't sound like my great-uncle. It sounded like a child, desperate and broken. I took a step inside. The tunnel sloped downward, deeper and deeper. The further I went, the colder it got, until I could see my breath in front of me. The walls narrowed until I had to squeeze through sideways. Finally, the tunnel opened into a small stone room. In the center was a mirror, cracked, blackened, covered in something that looked like soot. And in the mirror, I saw them. Children, dozens of them, pressed against the glass from the other side. Their faces pale and hollow-eyed, mouths open in silent screams. One hand pressed flat against the surface from their side. Then another, and another. I stumbled back. The whispers grew louder, begging, crying, screaming. I ran, scrambling up the tunnel, feeling icy fingers brushing at my ankles, grabbing at my clothes. I slammed the basement door shut behind me. We sold the house a month later. But sometimes, when I pass old buildings, I feel something tugging at my coat. And faintly, I hear my name whispered from the cracks in the stone. Next story. When my grandfather died, we inherited his farmhouse. It was a crumbling wreck, far from the nearest town, surrounded by fields that hadn't been tended in decades. My parents saw it as a project. I saw it as a nightmare. The first night we stayed there, the house breathed. Not the usual creaks and groans of old wood. No, it inhaled. Long, slow pulls of air that made the curtains sway and the dust stir. I convinced myself it was wind through broken walls, until the breathing started matching mine. Inhale when I inhaled, exhale when I exhaled, but a half second off, as if something was mimicking me. It got worse. Doors closed by themselves. Footsteps echoed behind me when I knew I was alone. My reflection in the bathroom mirror would smile even when I wasn't. One night, lying in bed, I heard it, a soft voice, under the floorboards, repeating one word over and over. Hungry. I stayed frozen until dawn. The next day, I found scratch marks under my bed, deep gouges, like something had been clawing its way up from beneath. I begged my parents to leave. They didn't listen. A week later, Dad vanished. Simply gone. No sign of struggle, no broken locks, no tracks, just gone. We finally left after that. Sold the house to some city people who thought it was charming. Last I heard, they disappeared too. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind is just right, I swear, I hear breathing under my bed again. Waiting. Next story. When I was younger, there was a phone booth at the edge of the park no one used. Old, rusted, cracked glass panels. It didn't even have a phone inside anymore. Just the dangling cord. But everyone said if you stood inside at midnight and picked up the cord, you'd hear a voice. Not from this world. One summer night, after too much soda and dares flying around, I tried it. 11:59 p.m., standing in the booth, staring at the stars through the broken roof. When the clock struck 12, I grabbed the cord. At first, nothing. Then, a click, and breathing. Wet, labored. A whisper crackled through the cord. You're next. I dropped it and ran. My friends laughed, called me a coward. The next night, one of them tried. Same thing. Except he didn't come out. We found the booth empty. but the cord was swinging, and faintly, if you pressed your ear to it, you could hear him screaming. By the end of that summer, 3 kids had vanished. The booth was torn down, but sometimes, on foggy nights, I swear I see it standing there again, waiting, the cord dangling, swinging. Next story. When I was 17, my friends and I broke into the old Fairchild Theatre downtown. It had been abandoned since the fire in '73. Half the building had collapsed, but the stage remained, charred and skeletal. Everyone said it was haunted. We brought flashlights, beer, and enough bravado to drown our fear. At first, it was fun. We dared each other to go on stage, took stupid pictures in the burnt seats, laughed too loud to hide how nervous we were. Then the lights died. All of them. Our flashlights, our phones, dead. As if something had sucked all the power from the air. In the pitch black, we heard footsteps. Software. Barefoot. Pacing across the old stage. We called out, thinking it was another group of idiots like us. But the footsteps kept circling. And then we heard laughter. High. Giggling. Wrong. We ran for the entrance. The front doors were closed. Chained from the outside. Impossible. We had left them wide open. The laughter grew louder. Closer. Someone, or something, was coming down the aisle toward us. I kicked out a side window and we scrambled through. When I looked back, I saw her, standing on the stage, a girl in a tattered ballet costume. Her skin ash gray, her mouth torn wide in a permanent grin. She waved at me. I never went back. But sometimes, in the silence between dreams, I hear her laughter echoing, and the faint creak of footsteps, pacing just outside my door. Отлично. Продолжаю в том же духе. Еще 3 длинные атмосферные истории. Ближе к 3500 символам каждая. Без лишних вставок. 11 laps формат. Все по правилам. Next story. There's a pond deep in the woods behind my old hometown. Locals called it still water. No one swam there. No one fished. It was just there. Perfectly flat. No ripples even on windy days. Animals wouldn't go near it. Birds never sang around it. When I was 15, my friends dared me to touch the water. I made my way down the narrow, overgrown path, heart hammering louder than my footsteps. When I reached the shore, the surface reflected the trees and sky perfectly, like a sheet of glass. Not a single insect buzzed. I knelt down, reached out. The moment my fingers touched the surface, everything changed. The reflection rippled, but not like water. It bent, like something thick and alive had stirred just beneath. Then I saw them, hands, pale, rotting, reaching up from under the surface, grabbing, clawing. I stumbled back, tripped, and fell into the mud. The water stayed still, but my reflection didn't. It stood there, grinning, waving. I bolted back to town. That night, I dreamed of the pond, standing at its edge, watching dozens of reflections moving on their own, smiling, beckoning. One by one, they stepped out of the water. I woke up screaming. I moved away a year later, but sometimes, when I pass by puddles, I catch glimpses of my reflection, smiling before I do, and when I check the soles of my shoes, they're wet, even on dry days. Next story. My grandfather used to tell me about the Watchers. He said they lived in the woods beyond our farm, tall and thin, with skin like stretched paper and mouths they never closed. They don't speak, he warned. They listen. He made us hang wind chimes around the property. Said if the chimes ever stopped moving, when the wind blew, it meant a watcher was near. I didn't believe him, until the night the chimes fell silent. The wind was howling, trees bending under it, but not a single chime moved. That's when I saw it. Standing at the tree line. At first I thought it was just a dead tree, gnarled and broken. Then it moved. Slow, jerky, like a puppet with tangled strings, its head twisted at an unnatural angle, As it watched me, I ran back to the house, locked every door, every window. But the watchers don't need doors. I woke up hours later to the sound of chimes inside the house, soft, fragile, coming from the hallway. I stayed under the covers, frozen, until dawn. When I finally crept out, I found the chime swinging gently in the kitchen, tied to the doorknob. The front door was wide open. Grandpa said we were marked now. That night, he packed up and left. I haven't seen him since, but every night, without fail, I hear the faint sound of chimes, growing closer. Next story, I started waking up with bruises on my arms, small ones at first, like fingerprints. I live alone, no pets, no sleepwalking. I set up a camera. The next morning, there were more bruises, deeper, darker. I checked the footage. At 2:46 a.m., my bedroom door creaked open. Nothing visible walked in, but the blanket moved, sank down, as if something had climbed onto the bed. My arm lifted into the air, twisted, pressed down hard, and then I saw it, just for a second, a face, right beside mine, inches from the camera, smiling. My sister used to collect porcelain dolls. Dozens of them lined the shelves of her bedroom, their glass eyes staring blankly into the room. I always hated them. Something about the way their heads seemed to tilt when you weren't looking. After she went to college, the dolls stayed behind. Mom tried to pack them away, but every time she did, they'd be back on the shelves the next morning. She thought it was me, playing tricks. It wasn't. One night, during a storm, the power went out. In the pitch black, I heard tiny footsteps. Soft, quick, not mice. Whispers followed, high-pitched, like children giggling behind closed doors. I barricaded my bedroom door and waited for morning. When the lights came back, I found tiny handprints on the inside of my window, on my mirror, on my closet door. That night, the dolls were all turned toward my room, every single one, facing my door, smiling. I moved into the basement after that, but it didn't help. Sometimes I woke to find one of the dolls sitting at the foot of my bed, waiting. I burned them all when I turned 18, watched their porcelain faces crack and melt in the fire. But last week, I found one on my porch, charred, smiling wider than ever. Next story. There's an old trail behind my high school that cuts through the woods. It's not marked on any maps, and teachers want students not to use it. They say it's easy to get lost, but it's more than that. They never talk about the voices. I took the trail once, thinking it would be a shortcut home. About halfway through, the woods changed. The air grew colder. The trees pressed closer. And then I heard it, my mother's voice, calling my name. But my mother was at work, miles away. Still, the voice was perfect. The same tone she used when I was little, calling me in for dinner. I tried to ignore it. Then came my best friend's voice. Then my teachers. Then dozens more. All people I knew. All calling out, begging, pleading, crying. I ran. The trees seemed to twist around me, the path doubling back again and again. Every time I stopped to catch my breath, the voices grew closer, whispering, laughing, mocking. When I finally burst out of the woods, it was almost dark. I turned to look. Nothing behind me. But the trees seemed taller, hungrier. I never took that trail again. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I hear knocking at my window. And when I listen closely, it's my mother's voice, calling me back into the woods. Next story. We moved into the apartment because it was cheap. Too cheap. Old building. Creaky floors. Faded wallpaper peeling at the edges. The neighbors were strange. Always watching. Never speaking. The first night, we found a note slid under our door. Don't open the closet after midnight. We laughed it off. Probably some weird neighborhood joke. The closet door in the hallway had no lock. Just a handle. At midnight, we heard it rattle. Soft at first, then harder, as if something inside was pushing against it. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then a knock. From the other side. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. I backed away. The next morning, another note under the door. You have to feed it. No explanation. No instructions. That night, the rattling started again. Harder this time. The door bulged outward as if something enormous pressed against it. We shoved a chair under the handle and prayed it would hold. It did, for now, but the notes keep coming, each one more desperate. Feed it, or it will feed on you. I don't know how much longer we have, and sometimes, when the rattling gets really bad, I swear I can hear whispering through the crack, telling me to open the door just once. Next story. When I was little, my dad told me not to pick up coins off the ground at night. He said some weren't dropped by people. They were bait. I didn't understand until the night I broke the rule. Walking home from a friend's house, I saw it. A shiny silver coin lying perfectly in the middle of the sidewalk. Reflex took over. I bent down and picked it up. The second my fingers closed around it, the world shifted. The streetlights dimmed. The houses seemed farther away, and the air grew thick, heavy, hard to breathe. Then I heard footsteps behind me, slow, crunching the gravel with every step. I turned, but the street was empty. I walked faster. The footsteps kept pace. Faster. Faster. The shadows stretched longer, curling across the ground like hands. When I reached my front porch, I turned to look one last time. Something was standing at the end of the street. Tall, wrapped in tattered cloth. No face, just a gaping black hole where a face should be. It raised one skeletal hand and pointed at me. I dropped the coin, ran inside, locked every door. I still have nightmares. Sometimes, when I wake up, I find coins lying on my windowsill, waiting. There's a radio station that only broadcasts after midnight. No call letters, no DJs, just static punctuated by strange broken songs. Locals call it dead air. I found it by accident, spinning the dial during a sleepless night. The song was old, warped. A woman's voice singing about lost love and open graves. I listened. I shouldn't have. The music stopped, replaced by a voice, not singing anymore. It spoke my name, software, Corful, as if testing it. I stared at the radio. The voice whispered my address, my birthday, things no one should know. I ripped the plug from the wall. The static kept playing, growing louder, filling the house like a living thing. I smashed the radio to pieces. Silence. But that night, my phone buzzed. A notification from an unknown number, a recording of that same warped song. Now, no matter where I go, no matter what device I use, the station finds me. And every night, the voice gets clearer, closer, promising I'll be part of the broadcast soon. Next story. When the new subway line opened downtown, everyone was excited. New stations, faster commutes. The city felt alive again, until people started disappearing. Always late trains, always empty cars. I didn't believe the rumors, until the night I missed my usual ride and caught the last train. At first, it was normal. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, graffiti-covered seats. Then I noticed it. The windows didn't reflect right. Outside was just black. No tunnels, no lights, just endless, swallowing dark. Then the announcements started. Not station names, whispers, my name, over and over. The lights flickered. Passengers I hadn't noticed before stared at me. Their faces were wrong, blurred, twisted. They smiled, mouths stretching too wide. I bolted to the next car. Same thing, no escape. The train just kept going. Faster, faster, until everything outside blurred into grey. Finally, the doors opened, not to a platform, to a massive gaping mouth, lined with teeth the size of buildings. I jumped, hit the tracks hard. When I scrambled up, the train was gone. And for a moment in the distance, I thought I heard my own voice. whispering from the dark, calling someone else's name. Next story. My apartment has an extra door. It's not on the blueprint, not mentioned in the lease. Just a small, plain door in the hallway with no handle on the outside. The first time I noticed it, I assumed it led to an old maintenance closet. Tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Forgot about it for a while, until the knocking started, always at 3:09 a.m. 3 knocks, then silence. It never came from the front door, always from the extra one. I asked the landlord. He said I was imagining things. So, one night, I stayed up, watching the door. At exactly 3:09, it knocked. Then, the handle slowly began turning, from the inside, but the door stayed shut. I moved out the next day. Months later, I ran into a guy who now lived in the same unit. I asked him if he'd seen anything strange. He laughed, said there was no extra door. I asked if he was sure. He stopped smiling. Actually, he said, I covered it with a bookshelf. Seemed better that way. Then he leaned in and whispered, "It still knocks though." I haven't spoken to him since, but last week I woke up at 3:09 and there was a knock at my bedroom wall. 3 knocks, coming from inside the wall. Next story. The new girl at work didn't talk much. She was quiet, polite, always wore the same black dress. No one remembered interviewing her. HR didn't have her file, but she had a desk, an email, and a nameplate. We all just accepted it. Then weird things started happening. People got nosebleeds when they passed her desk. One guy fainted after making eye contact with her for too long. Said he saw her face flicker, like an image glitching on a screen. Another swore he saw her walking outside the building after hours, even though he'd just seen her sitting at her desk. He quit the next day. I tried not to look at her, but one afternoon, I dropped a file near her desk and glanced up. She was staring at me, not blinking. Her eyes were too black, too wide, like empty sockets with something behind them. She smiled, but only with her mouth. That night, I got an email from her. No subject, no message, just an attachment, a video. I opened it. It was footage of me, sleeping, from inside my bedroom. I don't sleep much anymore. She still comes to work, still in the same black dress, still staring. I never learned her name, but sometimes, when the office is quiet, I hear typing at her desk, even when she isn't there. When my niece went missing, the whole town searched for her. Posters, phone calls, helicopters, no trace. Then we checked her drawings. She was 6, quiet, imaginative. She drew constantly, but after she vanished, we looked again. The pictures weren't random. Page after page, the same figure. Tall, thin, long arms, no face, standing in the woods, always just behind her. Sometimes in the window of our house, sometimes in the backyard. The last drawing chilled me the most. It showed her room. She was in bed. The figure was standing beside her, its hand resting on her head, and written at the bottom, in shaky crayon, he says, "I can stay forever." We found her a week later, wandering near the edge of the forest, barefoot, covered in scratches, eyes wide and empty. She didn't speak, wouldn't eat. She just kept drawing. The same figure, closer now, always smiling. We moved her to a new city, therapy, safe schools. But last week, her parents found a new drawing under her pillow. It showed their new home, and the tall man standing in the hallway, getting closer. Next story. My sister started talking to someone in the mirror when she was 7. We thought it was imaginary, but she gave it a name, Lila. She said Lila lived on the other side and could only come out when we weren't looking. Harmless, right? Then things started disappearing. Keys, toys, food. We'd find them later in odd places, like the attic or under floorboards. One night, I walked past the bathroom and saw my sister holding the mirror with both hands, whispering. I leaned in to listen. She said, "Okay, just 1 hour." Then the lights flickered, and I swear the mirror rippled. My sister turned around, but her eyes were wrong. Dull, flat. When I asked what she was doing, she just smiled and said, "I'm not her." She never spoke again.